Today we are going to focus on how to use the assignments section of Teams to improve setting work, be it a piece of long-term work or a homework that's got to be in within a set piece of time. In previous webinars, we've explored using things like posts and also OneNote class notebook to set day-to-day work, and assignments itself is very firmly in the realms of setting these pieces of formal work that will have a fixed time and date that is due back in. During today's session then, we'll have a look at how to assign work to students. We'll also consider the marking and feedback you're able to give them, what that looks like from the teacher side, but also from the pupil and student side. We'll demo how to manage those assignments, and as always, we'll take questions and we'll also reflect how any of you are getting on with this. We are this afternoon, as it says in the chat, going to offer you a chance to get a code that will accredit you with 1,000 points. That will be equivalent to you being an MIEE. The MIE qualification is something that Microsoft gives you when you undertake a couple of courses. Usually they're worth 500 points each. The Microsoft Education Centre is where you'll be able to redeem that. The Microsoft Education Centre itself is a place where there's a wealth of knowledge, resources and training courses that you can use to upskill yourself. Maybe a dedicated CPD pathway at the moment, or you're just interested in a particular area. Well, it's the place to go. It's currently being transitioned across, and it's moving across to what's called Microsoft Learn Education Centre, and that will happen over the next few months. But if you can log into the Microsoft Education Centre, where those fingers are pointing in the top right hand corner and the sign in button, you can use the email address that you've got from school, or you can sign up with a personal email address. Either way, it's absolutely fine. And then the code we'll give you at the end of the session, you can pop into the redemption box and we'll show you just how to do that at the very end. If you are then given MIE status, what you can do is become an MIEE if you wish. The application for that opens up in July, and Turn It On is running a course to guide you through how to make a successful application. A lot of people that are digital leaders in their school or driving transformation with technology often end up getting the MIEE expert qualification, and it's really useful to make connections, build networks, but also understand in greater depth the impact that you can have, not just in the classroom, but across the whole school with the technology that Microsoft gives you in the way of hardware, but also software such as Office 365. Anyway, back to today, and we are going to introduce you to the assignment part of Teams. Teams itself, just to set the scene for those people that are joining for the first time today, the idea is it brings everyone and everything together in one place, and it gives you a really complex and detailed set of tools that you can use as little or as much as you wish to get the outcome you desire. And then as you go through, you'll be able to pick up and use some more of those tools. And what normally happens when people come to Teams the first time, whether it was through the pandemic and you were forced into it, or whether it's by choice, you experiment with the section, you get competent with it, and you branch out. And assignments, along with posts and also files, is one of those sections that people often start with because there's a necessity. Whether you're looking at getting away from paper-based setting of homework, or whether you've got another platform and you're looking at making a cost saving in adopting Microsoft assignments in Teams rather than using that other platform. Teams itself will run on pretty much anything you like. It will open up in a web browser, or it can be installed as a dedicated app. That app can be downloaded and installed on Windows computers, Linux and Apple Macs. It's also available on Google Chrome now as well. So if you're running Chrome OS on a Chromebook, you can install it. But if you don't want to, you can open up a web browser. Most modern web browsers, certainly the Microsoft Edge browser, the rebuilt version, whether using Firefox or Google Chrome browser, or also Safari on an Apple Mac, it will run there. There's a few functions in Teams which are available in the app or more easily managed in the app compared to the online version, but pretty much everything you're going to need is there. And if you certainly, it's a question of getting pupils or students in, then that's absolutely fine for them to jump in on a web browser. And as you can see, it works on tablets. It also works on a phone. I acknowledge that if you are looking at a resource on a tablet screen or a phone screen, it can be limited. And if you've got to type a response and the keyboard pops out, it's even more limited. but we are realistic at the same time. We know that sometimes that not everybody at home has access to an individual dedicated computer of some description, so they may well be working off a device that they can get hold of in their household. The one hub philosophy connects all the different functions of teams, whether it's communication, collaboration, file sharing, simultaneous editing of documents, or bringing people together by having meetings when they still can't get to other schools or sites. Maybe you're a multi-site organization. It might be that you've still got some of the principles of COVID enforced. Well, Teams helps to make sure that everyone can get together and they can do what they need to do, and there's one single place to go to achieve that. Also, it brings together many of the apps that you might use. So on the left, you can see the Microsoft apps. It has Office integrated directly inside of Teams, so you don't need to go anywhere else. Everything will open up inside. It brings in many of the third-party apps that are available, things like Flipgrid, which is owned by Microsoft now, but it is very much an extension of the Office 365 core apps. Has the features that we said about making calls or using chat and having Teams for communication, but it branches out to bring in third-party platforms that you might subscribe to as well. So if you use Wakelets or Kahoot for questions and quizzes in class, you can get all of those inside of your class team. So everything is really in one place and you don't have to go to anywhere else. So that philosophy of a single hub is very firmly established and continues to run through the whole thing. With coming back to assignments, you can use assignments to set work. You could also give greater depth of explanation that you might have to hand out as an additional sheet that could possibly get lost from a paper diary. And they're using rubrics, and we'll show you how to create rubrics. Think of them a bit like using success criteria around a learning objective for a lesson. And the beauty is that you don't have to print out copies of sheets. You can just distribute everything electronically, and those resources can make their way directly to the pupil or student, and then they've got access to them instantly. There's no delay on that. You can also set it to be done a few days in advance, and that will be available on a relevant day, or have pupils manage their own resources. It's entirely dependent upon the age group that you teach and just how you would like them to work with assignments themselves. Thinking about the platform, one of the key things that people often want to do is being able to get that work and assess it. Now, assignments works formative assessment and summative assessment. And when you come to create the assignment itself, that's where you'll have choices to give as much or as little. And when you create an assignment, you go to that button, you can have a full-blown assignment, you can link to a quiz, or you can reuse work from previous years. We are very much trying to drive down the workload for teachers. We understand how busy you are. I was teaching myself previously. So if you can borrow from the previous years, and teams that have been used in previous academic years will be archived, and you'll be able to duck back over, providing you're still teaching the same year group, you can go and pick up an assignment or pick up something for your subject, bring it in, dust it off, update it, and you're not having to create it from scratch, something you can go in and make. So it's a good point this afternoon to duck over and show you what that looks like for real. So I'm using an Office 365 with some teams already created that we use for training, but you will have to set up your own teams if you don't have them already. If you have got them set up, then that's great, and make sure that you can utilize them and you've got all of the functions you need. So just going to synchronize that at the moment. It seems to be having a delay on that. Just trying to sync that over. Yeah, that's gone now. So you can see the Office 365 landing page. I'm going to use the Edge browser and of signing into the online version of Teams rather than the app. You just go to www.office.com, and that can be from any internet connected device that's got a web browser on it, and you can go into Teams. Once you get there, go to the app launcher on the side, select Teams, and it will open up in another tab. Or if you've already got the app installed on your computer, then you can just simply sign in with your school email address and password. And once you're signed in, that will be absolutely fine to continue through, and it will stay logged in for you. I've got a couple of demo class teams, so I'll use a primary class team today. Coming into the class team, you've got the me space on the side. These are functions that relate to you as an individual that no one else can access, whether it's your calendar or your private chats. And then anything outside of that is called a we space because we share the functions there. So we've got things that you would address along the top. Here are the posts and the files we've looked at in previous sessions. But today we are going to go across into the we space on the left here, and we're going to use assignments. When we come into assignments, you will see that I've got a few that are live and a few that are left over from previous times. So here I've got anything that is assigned and it's already not completed. On the other tab at the top, I've got assignments that have been returned and handed back into me by the pupils I'm working with. And then on the third tab, I've got anything that's in draft that I'm currently making. When you go to create an assignment, that's where you would go either to drafts or use the create button at the bottom. So when you click create, there's the from existing we discussed, where you can bring in content from a previous time, or you can go across to quizzes. Quizzes will open up and it will link to a Microsoft form. Once you've got into the Microsoft form, what you can do is you can create self-marking assessments. We're running an entirely separate session on Microsoft Forms, but you can also reuse a form from another session. So up pops forms, and then we've got one in here on a demo quiz. So we might click that and click next. And then once we come into that demo quiz will be attached there as my document. And then off we go with setting all of the other instructions that might go around it. I'm just going to discard that one and go back to setting the homework. So the other thing you can do is you can create an assignment from scratch, but rather than go through and not have any content, I'm going to use one of my drafted ones for you. So if we went into, let's say, reading task, and in here we've got English, and I've prefixed it with a subject because it's in a primary and there might be lots of different homeworks that you're setting that week, and it really helps pupils to understand what they are doing in a particular subject. You can also add tags in underneath. So if I get rid of that tag, you can add a category tag. If you've used them previously before, you will have them available to you, or you can create a new category. So I'm going to use reading there, and then reading will allow that to be known for the pupil to know that they're focusing with English on the reading itself. Once you've got the reading tagged in, you then go down to the instructions. I find, regardless of which age group I'm teaching, that using bullet points universally works best. They are able to break it down, and I normally try to keep the 3 instructions only, and then use any attached documents or files is the way to give the greater depth of information, so it branches out from there. You've got all the normal formatting that you normally expect from a basic word processor there, bullet points as well. You can add in links. So if you want your link to your instructions to include a link to the website, you can do so there, but you can also include a link as a resource as well. So we want them to go and we want them to look at this page and undertake some spag work to look at punctuation and grammar. And we're going to look at the valuable star, which is a piece of pre-created text. And it's in a function called reading progress. Now, reading progress is a fairly new feature, and we'll have a look at that as a dedicated section of today's training. If you want to attach a document, you go underneath the instructions and you're either going to click attach. When you click attach, you can bring documents in from your OneDrive. That's your personal cloud storage. So a lot of people now are moving to that rather than having a documents or a home drive on a server, because the beauty of that is accessible from anywhere and easy to share documents straight from OneDrive. So you're not having to attach things to emails anymore or anything like that. You might link out to a OneNote class notebook, which we've looked at in previous sessions, where you've created the day-to-day teaching, and what you want to do is reference the pages or the section in the OneNote class notebook so that the pupil can read it and use it to help them complete the homework. You can have a link to a website, maybe it's BBC Bite Size or something, where there's a resource you want them to go and read. Recently, in the last couple of weeks, Microsoft have added Make Code. So if you're using this to set anything for the computing curriculum in coding, you can link to Make Code projects. You can link to other teams. And that's where previously we created the reading progress. I will show you the reading progress as it's something new today and not available in previous sessions. But you can also, if you are still saving everything locally on your computer, you can upload from your device and you can insert a file there. Before I show you reading progress, just cover off the other two options. You can create a new document and attach it. So maybe you want to have a writing frame, or you want to give them some guidance about how to mark for punctuation and grammar. So I might create a Word document and type a few notes in there because I don't want to put it into the instructions. That's all possible as well. You can even record a video and have you giving input so they can watch that. If you're thinking about accessibility, some pupils, you know, the demographic of pupils you work with, they might find that far more accessible than having some text. The other thing you can do is you can link out to apps that come into Teams. And as we said earlier, the philosophy from Microsoft is it links out to as many other apps as possible. So you can pin out to different apps. If you wanted somebody to make a contribution in Flipgrid, you could maybe link them to Flipgrid and then they could go and leave their video feedback there. But we are focusing on reading progress in this example. And I've already got the volleyball star, but I want to do the same again. So I'm going to go to reading progress. It will open up the reading progress side here. So you can import your own document. So you might have a paragraph or a section from a book, and that can be in Word format or PDF. Word of warning at the moment, if you've got a lot of pictures on the page with the text, reading progress seems to struggle with that a bit. So it does like plain text rather than illustrated text, but it's getting better all the time. Browse the sample library. And then in the sample library, you've got it split by American phases of education. But what you can do is pick up a text and preview it. So it might be I'm working with year fours. So in here, I want to go in and find something, let's say, non-fiction. We'll have to have a non-fiction text. Let's say we're going to go in and we're going to look at something around jazz. I'm going to preview it. And there's some information in there about jazz and why as a genre of music it's so important. I'm going to select that because I quite like that. It tells me it's got 207 words and I'm going to lock that in. What I can then do is I can determine the number of attempts when a pupil or a student is reading it. So I'm going to say today I want them to have 2 attempts. You can also set them a time limit to read within. I don't tend to set a time limit. I find people have fed back to me, they find that quite stressful and not something that they enjoy. But you've got the option there to enforce it if you know that you want it in more of a test situation or an assessed situation. You can also change the pronunciation sensitivity, so you can have it as default or you can have it as really sensitive, so it's quite strict on the way that words are pronounced. And you can also determine whether you want them to video themselves when they're leaving a response in reading progress, or you can toggle that video to be off. At the moment, I'm going to leave video on and my sensitivity just as a default. And move through to next. That will lock that in. And then after Microsoft have locked that in, you will see it appear as a text on the assignment. If you ever change your mind, you think I want to get rid of it, you can remove it there and take it off. Then moving down, you can have points. You don't have to include points. Sometimes maybe if it's a practice SATs question or a GCSE examination question, I might say, look, there's a number of points in total because there's so many points per question and we're just preparing for that. But a lot of the time, I don't use the points feature at all. So if you leave it blank, that won't be enforced and it won't be something that they're subjected to. You can have those rubrics that we discussed. Rubrics can be created from scratch, or you can use other default ones that have been there previously. So if I want to use one about information text, I can click next. Up will come the rubric. You give the title of the rubric, the description of what the rubric is for. You can also add additional points, so they're associated with each tier of the rubric. I often find that if you use points in the assignment, don't use it in the rubric as well. Sometimes you're not using points in the assignment, you might want to use it in the rubric, but again, you can have both off, it doesn't matter. Here you've got levels of challenge, so I've used mild, spicy and hot. If you want to add another level in, you can do that there. If you want to get rid of that level, you've got the recycling bin. And then breaking it down, you can give an example of what you'd expect to see in the context of successful learning or successful homework, broken down by the objective or the criteria. You can add more of those in underneath as well if you wish. Once you've got it exactly how you'd like it to be, you can then click attach. And when you click attach, it will lock itself into the assignment, and then that is ready to use for the homework at the same time. Just having a long think about that. There we go. So there's a rubric now attached to my assignment as well. There it is over there, information text. If I want to get rid of it, I simply press the cross. One of the other things you can decide when you're setting an assignment in Teams is you can set it for your class, or if you've got permissions, maybe you are a phase lead or a subject lead in a primary or a subject lead in a secondary, and you've got access to other teams either in your year group or your department, you can choose to post to more than one team. So you don't have to do this over and over. So that's there, tick there. And you can see down here, I've got 2 classes. If I want to go back in, I can always untick that. And then moving across, you can also decide whether you're going to assign it to all of the pupils in your class, or you can assign it to certain specific individuals. So you could use this for targeted differentiation, whether you're extending learning or supporting, maybe you've got an intervention group, or you can also have groups of students as well. So there's quite a bit of flexibility about the way that you set that. And that works hand in hand with distributing resources through OneNote Class Notebook that we looked at in the previous session, where you can distribute by individual pages or by groups as well. Here, you then set the date that you want the work to be in. So I'm going to skim forwards. I'm going to say that I would like it all to be in this Friday. And the time that I would like it to be in by is, let's say, end of school, so 3 o'clock that day. And then down the bottom, you've got things like notifications going into the calendars of the people receiving it. Again, feedback from all age groups of pupils, students I've worked with, is that they find it useful to see it in their own personal calendar. And you can also get a notification in the general section of the team. Then you can either assign if you're ready to go, or if there's a resource you need to check, or you've got to confirm with a colleague, you can save your changes, and then it will still stay in your private drafts folder. All that pupils and students would see is assigned and returned. They wouldn't see the draft side. The draft is for you as a individual, as a member of staff. If I go across and we have a look at class reading, so if I went in here, here is the list of pupils that it's assigned to. I can see at the moment nobody's handed it in. I can leave feedback to nudge people, but once they've handed it in, it will appear over here in reading, in return, sorry, and it's a reading exercise. What it looks like for them, you can preview that as a teacher, so you can go to student preview, and what it would look like from a pupil perspective is that they've got instructions there, couple of resources. They've got an answers document and energy and reading, and then they've got an information text rubric which is locked in on the side. If they want to go in and undertake the reading progress exercise, they click on that and they will complete it. What that looks like from another point of view, I will show you in a minute from completed homeworks. So imaginative writing, thinking here, I'd got one person who'd handed in their work, so Ella's handed in her work. So if I was going in as a teacher, we can go and see, for instance, in reading progress, just what it's looking like from my side. So it will give the text that I've given. So here it's a section from Roald Dahl and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it will mark up the reading and reading progress. If you're going to set a file, the file would open up here. So if it was a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, and then you can mark it in exactly the same way. The document and the work that you're expecting to see returned will be in the window where I'm currently looking at reading progress. On the reading progress side, it gives me a dashboard and tells me, for instance, correct words per minute, so the fluency rate, the accuracy, so how many mispronunciations there was, extra words inserted. So as they've gone along, it looks like there's the potential here they're inserting more words, but also words they've omitted and so forth. If I want to watch that back, I don't have to just take the computer AI analysis for it. I can watch Ella do the reading.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. Chapter 1. Here Comes Charlie. These two very old people.
Obviously, I know that pupil better than anybody else, and it's good for me to hear how they've read. Once Ella's done all of that and I've listened to her feedback and I've looked at all the automatic marking, because it has saved me going through and doing that marking, I can give some feedback there and I can return that back. And if I want to move between pupils, let's say Henry had handed his in, Henry hasn't handed his in, which is why I've got a blank window there, I can move and give feedback in return, and to the point where I've got all of my work returned, and then it would move across to maybe science over here, and you'll see everyone's got their work returned. They've all got their individual feedback. So if I went to Sydney over there, the feedback was not handed in, or it might be Henry, and so forth. And then you can go through and tick that off. That's your mark book as a teacher, and the pupils and the students wouldn't see this side of returned. If you want to get the information out, you can export everything to Excel. So if you've got a different MIS system or a progress tracking platform or piece of software, you can take that data and you can move it out. It isn't stuck in Teams in assignments. You've got an option to move it. That point, looking at how to set work and how it looks like in your dashboard, before I move across to grades or insights, are there any questions about setting homework? Anything that you wanted to find out more about? I'm just going to go across and check in the chat and see if anything's in there. You're also welcome to unmute and speak to me at the same time. Anybody been using it at all and they've got it in their school and they've had any successes with it, or any questions that you wanted to ask about it? Nothing at the moment. If you do find that you want to ask something or it comes to mind, feel free to pop it over there in the chat and we'll come and pick it up and address it. No problem at all. So a setting of assignments we've covered quite thoroughly there. I would urge you, just go and have a go. You don't have to make it visible. You can just practice in drafts. Just see how it feels setting it up, and then you will build up a huge number over the course of a year. And providing if you're in primary, you don't get moved to another year group, you'll have yours to use again. Something that I've wholeheartedly encourage teachers to do, if you do get moved to another year group, assign the rights for the next member of staff, maybe that's taking over year 5, so that they can go and pick up your assignments from the previous year in your archive team, and then it will save them rewriting the same thing over and over again. Nobody needs the extra task in their life of having to set up homework when somebody did it in the previous year. It's much easier to go and pick it up and just dust it off and make it right for that current year group, even if you're changing resources or amending the wording that was there previously. If you wanted, I should have said, if you wanted a bit more room to work on anything in Teams, the arrows in the top right hand corner spread out the page and get rid of the information section that was there, so you've got more of space to work. This is all in the we space at the moment, so if I went to the me space, I can also look at assignments, and then it would tell me what I've got set and what's due for me. So that's my assigned work, my returned work, and my drafts. That's all in there, but that would be just mine that were assigned to me, or mine that I'm drafting as a teacher. And if I was looking at this in a pupil and student view, I would see the couple that I've got set for me in the week, and I wouldn't see everything else for all the other classes. So as a teacher, you'll see the homeworks you're setting across all the classes you teach. And if you teach across more than one year group and more than one class, they'll all be listed here. As a pupil or a student, you just see the ones that were relevant. You see the subjects that were set. Maybe you're going to get 3, 4 in a primary school, and you might get it across all the subjects in your curriculum timetable for a secondary school. If I pop back over and into the teams themselves, one of the other things that you can do is you can see when homeworks are set in the channel. So if I go across to general, and if I look in my various things that I've got set in here, class reading was set on the 4th of February. If I want to view that assignment, I can click the view assignment button. That was one of the choices we made when setting the assignment, as well as it being in the calendar. People were notified in posts. And if I click that as a pupil or a student, I will go to my own individual homework that will give me my own piece, and I won't be overwriting it with anyone else. Nobody else will be able to see what I'm doing apart from my teacher, and it's all absolutely private, but I can get it from one single place. Once you teach pupils that's how it works, they find it that's so much easier. And also, if they've lost their diary, they can always log into another computer and it will all be there, and any work they're doing is saved all of the time, so they haven't got to worry about they've lost their sheet or they've lost their book. It's in one place. You might decide, look, we're only going to use assignments for specific pieces of work, or we're going to introduce it sparingly with one year group, and we're going to trial it there and see how it goes before we cascade out across the school. Just think about the features there. Is it for you? Is it not for you? Are you quite happy with the way you're working? Would a particular group of parents or pupils find it more easy than others? And just decide where your routine is. It might be that you want to use posts first and assignments is going to be stage 2 of rolling out teams. Do what's right for your school. If we come back across and we move from assignments down to grades, in grades, you have your online mark book. So here I would have my 30 pupils in a normal situation. I've got a small intervention group of pupils set here. Across the top in the columns, I've got the various assignments that are there. And just as before, you can export your markbook out. So though it's in Teams, you're not wedded to it being in Teams. And then when I do my marking over in assignments, it starts to appear over here in markbook. So here was a geography assignment where I had points assigned to it. May have returned it with no points. You can say whether it's been viewed or handed in, and you can click the dots. You can go straight into the marking the student work view that we looked at in assignments, or you can leave it there and you can scroll backwards and forwards between the live assignments that you've got. So if you wanted to view something that's, let's go into that one, open student work, and you'll be back into that other view where we were looking at previously with Ella, and we could see her submission through reading progress. So you've got that ability to have your mark book in one place. If Teams isn't the only place you keep notes, and it probably is not going to be, then having that export to Excel function is quite handy. At the moment, there's no way to automate and sync the export function. It is a manual press of the button. We've seen many people put that in as a suggestion to Microsoft to get that automated in the future, and it will make it a lot easier that if you're keeping a mark book in another place or you're using another spreadsheet, but if you want to print it out and put it in a paper form, you can do that once you've got it into the Excel spreadsheet. One of the other really useful sides of having teams, and certainly assignments, is that you can use the insights function. Just to be perfectly clear, this does require an additional subscription and license. It isn't included with the free education version of Teams. But if you do think we'd like some more information, either from a leadership perspective or a class teacher or department perspective, you can approach whoever makes the budgetary decisions and ask for the licensing on this. But what you can get is not only just when you might have meetings, but you can have things like engagement with work this week, how many people have missed submissions, what's the average score, and then you can drill down. So if it was assignments, for instance, it says here we've got new grades and submissions. So if I go in, I can start to get a data dashboard that will tell me just how successful I'm being in getting the work in from the pupils that I'm with. So if I go into there, here is a fictional mark book with different titles, the class, what's returned and not returned, what's the average grade per class. I can either view that for an individual pupil, or I can break it out by categories. So if I was just interested in reading, I can filter it on reading, and then it would bring up my reading assignments. And for me as a teacher, that's really handy for finding what's going on in a particular subject. And I can also change that in a date range. For me, it's for the last month or 28 days, but I can have it for a number of weeks as well. Then what Teams does is it pulls all that information together and it puts it into one easily accessible place for you. So you can start to see just what's happening, how many people are getting those questions correct. Does it mean that I need to go back and reteach that? Is there a particular group within my class where they're just not getting it and I need to bring them together to have a table intervention? And those insights are really powerful alongside using assignments. So it's something to think about for the future. It's normally assignments first, and then considering what insights might be able to do for you afterwards. And as you can see, all this traffic lighting and the feedback is another meaningful way to get your mark book jumping out at you, so you can just consider, well, do I have a problem here? Because, for instance, Rory missed his first one, it was 23 hours late, and then 1 day late, finally did get it in, but actually I had a phone call home on this date, and things might be turning a corner, but I am going to monitor it. So you're probably going to do that in some markbook form, but it might be that you start to get that taken care of here in Teams rather than having to keep a separate additional markbook in another location. So today is focused on setting work for a period of time. Assignments, grades and insights are all useful tools to have in your arsenal, and would link in with the previous things that we've looked at, with going to the general channel and posting there, or using the files that you might have stored in there. If you do add something into an assignment, it will appear here in the files section anyway, so you'll see that starting to come into there. And it's really just now thinking about, well, where are you on the grand scheme of things? Are you not tried this at all? Are you going to scare people if you introduce it? Are there certain teachers that are going to need training support to phase across and get used to using this? If you've got a willing group of staff that just love change and want to have a go at this, or do you need to plan this for the next academic year? Because do you know what? We're still getting past COVID. We've still got extreme staff shortages. To bring this upon the school now would probably bring people to their knees. Do we need to just hold off and introduce this at a later point? And all those decisions are something to think about and just pitch it correctly in a change of transition. I'm going to jump back over to the presentation to finish off for today, and I'm going to share the code with you. So the code itself, as I said earlier on, is something that you can redeem when you come to go into the Microsoft Education Center, and it saves you completing a course about doing Microsoft assignments. It will mean that it's just there and available for you and ready to go. So if I jump across and jump into the presentation, which again is having a long thing. Let's just try that one more time. Okay, I think that's working. Let me just put it into display mode. So on the Microsoft Education Center, there's some great resources on there. One of the things that really helps is to know where to go for some of those guys. So transforming learning with teams and supporting learning initiatives with staff teams are great, and they link into using assignments as part of those courses. They also can link to a learning pathway, which are available in the Microsoft Education Center or Microsoft Learn. And a learning pathway is a string of linked courses. Might be all teams related, or it might be related to the flow of the lessons and setting homework and distance learning via Office 365. But those are a couple of really useful ones to go in and grab. One of the other things that you can do is you can also, as I said, just go across and look around for yourself. Now, the Microsoft code that you're looking for is displayed on the screen. I'll pop that into the chat so you can copy and paste it. Where you go for that, in the bottom left-hand corner, once you go to the Microsoft Education Center, and if you've joined us during the session, in the chat is the link to the Microsoft Education Center. You go there, and in the top right-hand corner, there'll be a sign-in box. You can sign in, as I said, with your school account, or you can sign in with a personal account. It really doesn't matter. Once you've done that, you can then click on your initials, because the sign-in box will change to initials, and the code that I'm going to put into chat now will be something that's available for you to paste into the box, which is will pop up in the right-hand window in the screen I've got shared with you currently, and it says redeem code. If you paste that code starting with T-, it will then accredit you with 1,000 points, and it will give you MIE status, Microsoft Innovative Educator. And that will be you on the pathway to looking at whether there's any other good resources in here that will enhance your CPD. Word of warning, Microsoft, as I said, are in the process of moving the Microsoft Education Center to Microsoft Learn Education Center, which is the replacement platform. If you move your account across to the new platform, you won't be able to redeem codes, or if you've done that already, you won't be able to redeem codes. It is frustrating, and we have raised that with Microsoft. They hope to have that fixed sometime in April to May. So that code that we're sharing with you today will remain active and will remain live. So whichever point Microsoft fix that issue with Learn, you'll be able to paste that code in the same way and still get accredited with the same training that you've completed today. We, as an organisation, are very much active on social media with Microsoft, so you can follow us on Twitter, Turn It On. There's also some really good people to follow in the UK. Jen King, who's the UK education lead, Mike Tholfson in America. He posts an awful lot of content on a weekly basis about tips and tricks to get the most out of Office 365. If you've got any questions, you can always email office@turniton.co.uk if you want to ask anything individually or you're interested in any of the other services we have. We really value getting your feedback, so we've made feedback very quick and easy. It can be on a Microsoft form. There's a QR code on screen. If you scan that with your mobile phone, it will open up the form. Also, if you the link itself, I'll paste that into the chat, so it's quite quick and easy to do. We value your feedback because it helps to shape future sessions. It will also let us know if there's anything you'd like us to tweak in the future version of this session. And as a company, we have a raft of services that can help you with rolling out Office 365, whether it's managing that as a project or technical support to make it possible. We've pretty much got the services around that if you need anything. So really, at this point, it's over to you. Are there any questions, anything you'd like to know about using assignments and teams? I'm more than happy to answer them for you. Just going to go over and have a look at the chat and see if anyone's posted anything in there while I've been speaking. Nothing in there at the moment. I want to stop the recording, but if there's anything you'd like to ask, please feel free